Moho will show you how. Oh, Moho will show. Bingy bongy, bingy
You ready to craft? It's crafting time.
bingy bongy.
Hello and welcome to the next part of our crochet along hexagon cardigan. So far we've done the hexes, we've done the Jago sleeves. If you are using them, you've added the chest extensions, you've done the back extension, and you've done the bottom extensions. So now if you are putting a hood on, it's time to add the hood. So let's see how we do that. So we're going to be working around this opening at the top, which is why it's important that if you were doing the hooded version, when you do your chest extension rows, you've not joined, you've not continued to go all the way around here, but you've stopped and turned, and we've got this opening because the hood is going to fit in there. If you don't have that and you've only got this little bit here, it's going to be very, very, very difficult for you to add a hood. So let's make sure we've got our opening. Right, let's find the end of my yarn. Here it is. I'm going to go with a lovely storm blue. Now I'm going to join on this side. Now it says on your instructions, it says you'll have a chain space there. Now you might have, depending on what row you finished off and how many rows of chest extension you did. So we will have a look at how that looks on each side. So I'm going to join over here and I'm going to work around this way. Now on this side I have got 3 trebles because it turns out on this row here, look, I missed doing my last 3 and I just did a 1, but I'm just going to leave it because it's easy breezy and we're not too worried about it. So I'm going to put my hook in right in here. And it's the same as we were doing for the bottom extension rows and the back extension rows. All the way up the hood, the rows will either start with 1 treble and end with 1 treble, or they'll start with 3 trebles and finish with 3 trebles. So because this side, which is right, is going to end with 3 because we've got a hole there, I'm going to start with a cheeky 3 in here. If you've got a 3 there and you've got a 3 cluster there, then you'll be starting and ending with 1. So just do your 1 treble, your 1 chain, your chain to count as your first treble, just like you would normally, and carry on. I'm going to squeeze in and do a little fudge in here. That's what happens when you're not paying attention. So I'm going to start with my 3 trebles, and all we're going to do is work along, and although it's mostly a raw edge along this top bit, we're just going to, wherever we find a space, we're going to put 3 trebles in. Now that one is an errant space on mine, so I am going to skip it and go over to that one because that should actually have been a 3 there, shouldn't it? So let's do so it's just 3 trebles, 1, 2 and 3. And this first row you might come across different obstacles depending on what you've got, what your edges look a bit like. There might be some bits that are a bit confusing, but we'll just see what we come to. So when I come to this bit, I'm going to put, this is up my my front bit, I'm going to put 1 in there, well 3 trebles in there, and then I'm going to put 3 trebles in this hole next to it as well. So basically where there is a space that looks big enough to stick 3 trebles in, you just stick 3 trebles in. Oh, what is that? 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to stick 3 trebles in this one. Now don't worry if you think that you are going to add a few extra stitches on this row. Your hood anyway needs to be sort of, well, big enough to get your head in, doesn't it? So don't worry if you think this is going to splay out a little bit. There's no more increases after this round, after this row, so you'll be fine. So I've come now to the shoulder seam here. So I've done 3 in that one, so I'm going to skip across and do 3 in this one. We're not doing like we did at the bottom where we did the decreased 2 together over the seam because, like I said before, we're not too worried about if we've got a little bit of extra increase. It'll just mean there's plenty of room for your head. So 3 in here. So I'm working along the back of the chest extension rows now. 1, 2, 3 there, and then miss me clump in the next one, and we're just going to do that all the way around this row. Just skip a clump, 3 trebles. Next one along. Now if depending on how big you want your hood to be, that will affect how many rows you do, but the rows are just going to be the same as the bottom extension rows, just granny stripe pattern. where we start with 1, end with 1, start with 3, end with 3. And you carry on until it is as big as you want it to be. So I'm going to do 3 in here, 3 in here, and 3 in here, where I'm coming across my Jago join. 1 and 2 and 3. 3 in there, and a 1 and a 2 and a 3. 3 in the next space, even though it's right next to it, that's all right. We're going with it. 1, 2, and 3. And then we'll have 3 in here. And then we've got our final 3 into the final space. Oh, my yarn. 1, 2, 3. And then 3 into there. Now, like I say, if you're finishing with the 3 trebles there, just put 1 treble in the top of that final stitch. And that will be just gravy. Right, let's have a look at this then. Now, also, if you wanted to, certain colours can be added in this way. If you get a bit bored. I really like that, just as a sort of little granddaddy collar there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to work around on just these stitches. If you did a few and folded it back, you get quite a nice sort of, is it crew neck collar? I don't know. I'm not up on me collar terminology. So what we're going to do, I'm going to though carry on, and I know that I want a hood, not a collar. So granny stripe pattern, we finish with 3 trebles, so we must be starting with 1 treble, or the equivalent of, which in this case is my chain. So turn around, and then it's just going backwards and forwards, doing your granny stripe rows until you reach your desired hood depth. Now bear in mind as well that hair takes up quite a bit of space, especially if you've got a lot of it and it's on the back of your head. So if you've got a lot of hair on the back of your head, you might need to make a slightly taller hood so that it can sort of sag down and accommodate your bonnet. Right, I will carry on to the end of this row and we'll have a look at what the end of that row looks like. And then I think we'll just get on with it, eh? All right, so I've come along to here. I've got my last full proper space to do. There, 1 and 2 and 3, and because the last row finished on a 3, I know that this row must finish on a 1. So I go 1. Now make sure, I've seen a few people when they're doing these, a few people on this first couple of rows, especially after a row edge, are slip stitching, joining into down here. Make sure you're going into the top of the chain of your last row. You're not going too low down. So we go in there. Lovely, round through 2, round through 2, and then that's that row finished. So let's have a quick look at how we're looking. There we go. And like I say, if you wanted just to have a sort of a fold over collar instead of a hood, oh, that's a little one, isn't it? That's a cutie. You could do that, or we will carry on. Right, so I'm just going to carry on doing up here. So when you're measuring for your hood, you want to measure from your, not my shoulder, I said shoulder, didn't I? I didn't mean shoulder. From like your collarbone, that's as it goes over your shoulder, up to the top centre of your head. And then you're going to add up to 5 centimetres. If you've got masses and masses and massive hair that you want to fit in your hood, you might need to add a little bit more, but just see how you feel. What is good about this pattern is that as we go along, each time you think you're at the height, we can stick a few stitch markers in and check out how it feels on our head. So just as you go in, just keep trying it on and having a go. Welcome back. Right, I'm just under the length that I want for my hood. Now I did reduce it a little bit because I tried it on a few times and it was bigger than I thought it was going to be. So this is, I think I've gone down to about 34 centimetres on this. So it is, before you do your Jago row, I would just put a few stitch markers in and just try it on and see how it's sitting. Okay, so now there's 2 possible scenarios where you might be at right now. You might have finished with, you might have done a row with 1 at each end, or you might have done a row with 3 at each end. Depending on which one of those you've done will affect how many spaces you've got. So the first thing that you need to do when you're ready to join your hood along the top and fasten it off is count the holes that you've got. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So that's 19 spaces between the clusters. You're not counting the clusters, counting the spaces. So I've got 19. So I think we can all agree that is an odd number. So we're going to need a stitch marker. And if we've got an odd number of spaces, it's quite easy because we want to put this in the one that is the middle. So the middle of 19 is 10. So I'll just check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'm going to put that in there. Lovely. If you have got an even number of spaces, where I want you to put your stitch marker is find the middle cluster. So if you'll say you've got 18, you'll have 9 holes on that side, 9 holes on that side. Find the cluster in the middle and put a stitch marker in the middle treble of that middle cluster, so you know that that's the center of your row. All right, we'll come back to that in a moment. So I'm going to take this out so I don't confuse me. So what we're going to do, now there's 2 options for how you want your hood to look. If you want quite a pointy, peaky bit at the back, so you want it to be quite pointy, a bit like sort of elf hood, then you're just going to do 3 trebles. It's just going to be a row of trebles all the way, and then we'll adapt it here for the where we join. If you want a slightly more tapered bit to it, so it's not quite a sharp point at the back, then I'm going to show you how we do that. So if you have an even number of spaces, what you will do, and you'll work into every space along until you come to your stitch marker in the middle, then you will fold your work, and you will, as you're working along these, you will join as you go, so your holes will correspond. So that will link to that one, that will link to that one, that will link to that one, and then you'll finish off nice and neatly at the end. If you have got a space in the middle, then we're going to do it slightly differently, so I'll show you that one. So I'm going to work up to here. Now I'm going to do the tapered corner of an odd number of spaces. Right, so if you have got an even number of spaces, I'll tell you the bit that you're going to miss out. All right, so let's turn this around so we're facing the right way. Here we are. So I'm going to go up to, I'm going to taper just the back of the hood a little bit. So I'm going to work up to 2 spaces before this one. Right, so I'm going to work up to the penultimate space before my stitch marker. So I've finished with 1 on the last row, so I'm going to be starting with 3. So I've got my chain and 1 and 2, and then I'm going in here, 1, there we go. Right, so if I had an even number, this would be here. Right, and we would do exactly the same as what we're going to do, except for one little bit. So because I want this to taper down, I'm going to use slightly shorter stitches. So in this penultimate space, I'm going to do, before my middle, I'm going to do 3 half trebles. So that's where you get your 3 loops on your hook, and you come all the way through all 3 at the same time. 1, 2, and 3. So still working in clusters of 3. And then in this next one, I want to go even shorter. So I'm going to go down to double crochets. So I'm going to do 3 double crochets in that one. So that's in, pick up a loop, wrapping through 2, in, pick up a loop, wrapping through 2. Now, if you've got an even number, you're just going to skip over there and ignore this next little bit. If you've got an odd number, in the space where your stitch marker is, you're just going to do 1 double crochet like that. And then we're going to go on to this next little bit over here. So we're going to our next space and we're going to mirror that. So we're going to do 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3. And then you need to fold it so that the other side is sitting at the back, because we're ready to Jago now, aren't we? Oh, I'm all tangled up. It's quite bulky at this point, isn't it? So that was my middle point. You can put your stitch marker back in if you want, if it helps you, just to see where your midpoint is. So that was my midpoint there. So I want to skip those 3 doubles. So that was my middle. So I'm skipping these 3 doubles, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going in this space between the 3 doubles and the 3 half trebles. And I'm just doing my slip stitch like I've done for all my other Jago bits. Then in the next one, it's 3 half trebles. 1 and 2 and 3, and then remember, if we do 3 on the front, we've got to do a slip on the back. Slip stitch on the back, and then 3 trebles, and a slip stitch, and we repeat that 3 trebles followed by a slip stitch until we get to the end. So let's see what that looks like. Ta-da! That's what it looks like. So I've worked all the way up. I've been in my penultimate space. I'm going to go in the final space on this side and do my slip stitch in there. Now I'm going to finish with 3 trebles because I started with 3 trebles, and it's exactly the same if you were finishing with 1. So if you're finishing with 1, you would just do 1 and then your jig or slip stitch. If you're finishing with 3, we do our 1 and 2 and 3, and then find that top of the turning chain in there where we were started off and do your too tight and do your slip stitch in there. Okay, and then there you've got your hood seam. Now this will, I know this seems a bit more prominent on one side, but once you've worn it a bit and it's stretched out, it will sit flat and you won't necessarily be able to see which side your seam was even on. So that should be it for your hood instructions. Like I said, if you were doing your pointy one, if you wanted to have quite a pointy corner, because this one just tapers it in just ever so slightly so you don't just get like a point on the back of your head. If you did want a pointy corner, you just don't do the half trebles and the doubles, you just do the trebles and do everything else all the way along the same. And if you've got an odd number, you just put 1 treble in that central hole there. All right. Right, I think that should be it for the hood. As ever, give us a shout if you've got any questions, and if not, we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
It's crafting time again. What's that? You don't know how to craft? Well, it's simple. You just let Moho show you.